Jedidiah Jenkins is the New York Times best-selling author of To Shake the Sleeping Self, Like Streams to the Ocean, and Mother Nature. His parents, Peter and Barbara Jenkins, are the authors of the best-selling A Walk Across America series, chronicling their 5-year walk across America that ended in Florence, Oregon. He has appeared in the Paris Review, Orion, and The Advocate, and has been covered by National Geographic. Welcome, Jedidiah Jenkins.
I've met a lot of older people, grandparents, teachers, who give me the spiel of, oh, my life went by so fast. Just yesterday I was 19 or 25, and now I don't know where all that time went. I just blinked and I was 80. And I think about that and I'm like, what a strange way to be alive. Back in California, I had this fear of building this routine in my 30s and suddenly the decade is gone. And so I promised myself I would do something radically different, and I'm gonna do something that scares the crap out of me and see if that changes my brain chemistry. I've been living on my bicycle for a year now. I've biked from Oregon, down America, down Mexico, Central America, into South America. And people ask me, why do you live on a bike? Why did you quit your job? Why are you doing this? My answer is this. The routine is the enemy of time. It makes it fly by. When you're a kid, everything is astonishing. Everything is new. And so your brain is awake and turned on. So every passing second, your brain is learning something new, learning how the world works. And so the muscle of your brain is activated. And as you get older, and your brain has figured out the patterns of the way the world works, this is how you make money, this is how you graduate school, this is how you get a mortgage, this is how you have kids. I've got that on lockdown. I know my car, I know how to go to work every day, I know how to check out, all these things. And once your brain establishes a routine, it stops, the alertness goes away, the fascination with the way the world works. And I think that's what travel in general does. It wakes up your brain. I'll go into a new country, into Panama, into Colombia, these countries I'm scared of because of the news. And I'll find it beautiful and shocking. Every hill I cross over is insanely awesome. My brain is fascinated. I didn't know my brain could be so turned on. I want to be aware of every day I'm alive. And I want to make it to 85 and be exhausted because I have been alive and awake every single day. And I think that's the duty of being an adult, is when you're a kid, everything's new, so you don't have to work for it, you're just astonished by it. Once you're an adult, that's a choice. You choose adventure for your own life. But it's not about the bike. It's about getting out of your routine. And that could look like anything. And that's what I'm doing here. That's why I'm doing this bike trip. Because I don't want my days to control me. I don't want my life, the calendar, to be my boss. I want to control my days. I want to choose the adventures that I go on, and I want to choose a mind and a soul that's wide awake. Because in a sense, it turns your 100 years on this planet into 1,000. And so, I mean, that's why I'm doing this bike trip.
I highly recommend having your friends make films about you when you're 30 because it's so cute. It's so cute. Hi, everybody. My name is Jedidiah. I'm so happy to be here. As Sierra said, my family, I have connections to Oregon. I started that bike trip in Florence, which I'll tell you about momentarily. But I want to get to, the reason I'm here, the reason I want to talk to you today is because you are in the business of luring travelers to this beautiful, gorgeous, best of the 50 states. And I have dedicated my life to traveling and writing about travel. And I think it's so important when I'm in the weeds of writing a book or figuring out what my next book is, or when you're at a conference like this and hearing like very niche, nuanced skills and things to maximize whatever those words are. It's so important to zoom out and remember why you got into this incredible industry in the first place. What are the first principles? And I'm gonna tell you mine. So it starts with this man. Okay, I was in northern Uganda, 4 hours from the closest village with a store, on the border of South Sudan and northern Uganda. I was in my mid-20s. And I was there working on a documentary. I was a lawyer for an NGO, and we were making a documentary about these tribes that live in fear of abduction. And I'm sitting there while we're interviewing someone, and I'm holding up my own personal camera. And this man, by the way, when I showed up into the village, they'd never seen a white person before, and so every child, as you should when you see a white person, screamed and ran, and truly screamed like I was like a ghost from hell. And this one was the one brave one who was like wanting to go to hell, I guess. But anyway, I was sitting there watching this interview, and this old man came from behind and started tapping me, and he would say something to me in a language I didn't understand. And I was like, sorry, I don't know, I'm working. And he would tap me. Finally, I went up to our amazing coworker who lives in northern Uganda, and I was like, Joffrey, this man is trying to ask me a question, and I don't know what he's asking me. Will you see what he wants? And so he spoke to him, and then Joffrey came up to me just very quickly and said, oh, he wants you to take his picture and show him. He doesn't know what he looks like. And he moved away. Oh, it makes it emotional. And and Joffrey went away, so I took the picture of him and showed it to him. And this is the only picture of him that exists in the world. And he looked at the screen and was very quiet for a moment, and then gave me the camera back. And Joffrey had left, so this kills me. But he said something to me that I don't know what he said. And he said something to that little boy, and he got up and he walked away. It must be the altitude. What is the altitude here, like 20? And that moment rewired something in my brain of this man has lived far from the world. He's lived, obviously, a very long life. And I could see the way he moved amongst the village. He was beloved. And he saw himself, and the look on his face, as far as I could tell, was that he was pleased with what he saw. He was proud. And I don't know what he said, but just, I don't know if you've ever seen that movie Lost in Translation where Scarlett Johansson whispers in his ear and we don't know what she said. And you're just meant as the viewer to figure it out. Like what he said to me was, do not regret what your picture is when you're my age. Earn that picture. Become the person that you are proud of when you get to be my age. And so that was my mid-20s. And it put a seed in me that ultimately grew into my life's career. But have you ever heard of the term that New York is a river and Los Angeles is a lake? I'm going to tell you. So in New York, if you go to New York, it's so happening. Everything's happening. You're walking everywhere. You're on the subway. You go to the city, and the city happens to you. You just bump into people, you stumble into a cool store, you meet friends, and it's just like you move to New York and the city happens to you. If you move to LA, you're just like sitting in a gorgeous backyard, the end. You're like, where is everybody? Well, you're not gonna find them. They're in their house or they're in their car. And so LA is like a lake where you have to row to move. You can't just sit there and go. You've got to row yourself. And that has always influenced. I'm not sure. I talk amongst yourselves later about what Portland is, but it seems pretty walkable to me. But it's also raining. But also, you guys don't really use umbrellas. You're just anyway. So that felt like some sort of metaphor to me in terms of the trajectory of a human life. Your childhood is the river, and then somewhere in your mid to late 20s, you just kind of, the river dumps out in a lake, and you're like, wait, I'm supposed to do this now? Like, where do I go? Like, I've been told where to go the whole time. So my parents, this is such a cool claim to fame. They were on the cover of National Geographic. In the 70s, this is Florence, where they're in the lake, or the ocean there, that's Florence, where they finished. After 5 years, so my dad started in upstate New York and walked alone, this is in the late 70s, to New Orleans, where he met my mother. They fell in love. He said, I'm walking to Oregon, and she said, what? And anyway, it was love, and then she decided to go with him. And they walked for 3 years. And so like John Day, Eugene, Florence, like these are all like very heavy in the family lore. And it was just growing up in a family where if you have a big adventure, you can do it. You're allowed to do that. And I also grew up in a world of extreme religious fundamentalism, particularly my sweet angelic mother loves the Lord and makes sure you do too. And it's quite the journey when you're a little gay boy growing up in Nashville. And so there's a term in gay culture, I don't know if you've heard this, in male gay culture called best boy syndrome. Have you heard it? It's basically when you, and this is pretty true for the queer community and lots of communities, where if you wake up into a world that is not made for you and your worth is not innate, and especially when you're queer, that lack of worthiness is internalized, meaning you realize it before it's outward facing oftentimes, and so you want to hide it. If it was skin color, you can find someone else with your skin color and have lunch with them. But if it's internal otherizing, you go through this period of bargaining to hide it. A lot of people do, if you grew up in Tennessee. And so the best boy syndrome is where in that middle school bargaining phase, you decide, okay, well, I guess I'm gonna be a straight A student body president. I'm gonna become the best so that at least my worth, I can guarantee my worth. And so I went to a great school, I went to law school, and then I worked in nonprofit law because as a Christian, I'm supposed to like help the world. And I kind of met that man, and I felt my boat drift into the ocean, into the lake. And I was like, I have been on this conveyor belt, and I don't know, I haven't been in the driver's seat of my life at all. And I want to be. And so I and my buddy Philip went to Florence, Oregon, went to the beach, the exact spot where my parents walked into the ocean. We mistakenly took our bikes in there, which rusted some shit, but it was fine. And then carried them over the dunes and started a 14,000 mile ride to Patagonia. And this was also, in terms of best boy syndrome, I was gonna be like manly. I was gonna be like, I am gonna do something no straight man that I know has ever done. I didn't know I was subconsciously inviting my like hottest friend to do it with me, but that's, when you're stressed and you're tired, your eyes need to relax. So, and we like saw the world. It was just the greatest trip of a life. And like the maps that my dad had on his walk with my mom, I drew for myself. And I cannot tell you what it was like to reach the end. If you've never been to Patagonia, I highly recommend it. It's the coolest mountains I've ever seen. They have native ostriches there, which they're not called ostriches, but they look like ostriches. It's hard to say that a lot, I'm sorry. And then my dream was to write a book. And so I wrote a book as a simple exercise in not living a life that I regret. My heroes are writers. I was like, I might as well do this while I'm rowing the boat and see what happens. Like, picture Crater Lake. You're in charge. You're gonna go see what every shore looks like. And if you get to a shore and it's not where you belong, you can row to another shore. And I was rowing to find shores where I belonged. And I found that being a writer was the phenotype, the outer show of who I am and what I want to be. And it worked for me. And this book went around the world. It was very great. So now I'm like, okay, wow, I'm rowing. Who do I want to be? And during the process of writing this book and going on this trip, I deconstructed my rigid, old school religion. I had my first kiss. I had sex for the first time. I had my first boyfriend, all at the age of 30. I was basically like one of those girls trapped in a basement, it comes out after. And I saw the world at age 30, which is I honestly highly recommend it, because you're like an adult with a functioning brain. You're not all chemicals. And you're like kissing somebody and you're like, I am me and I am finally kissing somebody and this is good and they kind of taste funny and I don't think I like that, but maybe I will someday. And maybe that's how it was at 16. I wasn't there. And so now I'm out, I'm openly gay, I'm finally being the person I want to be, I'm traveling, I'm living my dream life. But this is hard on my sweet, angelic, wonderful mother who has a different worldview. And my mother, God bless her, is a very powerful person, and I see her as this sort of like God figure, even though I cleaved away from her and rearranged my worldview that is not in line with her. And I had this realization that my mom is a woman in her 70s who used to be in her 30s. And I now am old enough to where a lot of my friends have kids, and the kids didn't transform them into another person. It's still my friend who is a mom. And this is such an obvious, stupid, I was like, my mom is a person. She's just a young girl who got older, but is still that young girl inside. And so her worldview can be hers. It doesn't have to be mine, but I want to defang her. And so I'm on this journey of rowing my own boat. Oh, this is my mom. So I started doing trips with her, which I'll explain. This is 60 seconds. But I want to know her. And so I started going on trips with her. Hi, I'm Jedidiah Jenkins, and this is my mom, Barb. Pretty much every year, my mom and I go on an adventure.
Look at these horses out here in the high pastures. This is wonderful.
This is us somewhere in Colorado. What? We've road tripped across America.
We were attacked by a carload of renegade outlaws.
We've been to Europe.
Riva Dirty.
We have fun.
Testing. We're getting ready to go to Steak and Shake. Get out of here.
This year, she asked me to take her to see the Canadian Rockies.
Have you ever heard a horse before?
I really did.
So that's a sweet video. It's on YouTube. It's called Miles Between Us, Miles to Go. I made a short film about these trips I go on with my mom. This is my mom on the road. Maybe you've driven it on the way to John Day. And it is a gorgeous part of Oregon. I dropped her there. I've never seen her again. But this is part of the road where she walked across America. So I did this whole road trip with her, starting in New Orleans. We went all the way to Florence together in 2021, where I wanted to defang her and know the girl. And then the day before the trip, she comes downstairs in Nashville and she goes, I found my journal from my walk. I wrote every day. And so I had like live journal entries from her at age 30 when she was doing her big adventure that I did when I was 30. And I got to, this is why I recommend everybody journal. Even if you don't think your thoughts are interesting, you'll find them interesting when you're older. When you're that old man in Uganda, he wants to see his journal. So I did this trip with my mom. We had the time of our lives. I got to know her, and it rearranged our relationship where I suddenly felt different about her. I felt her as my friend, not this alien force that creates some sort of like fight or flight response. And that, I wrote this book about it, Mother Nature, which is my most recent book. Then I realized that, you know, when you get a little distance from your life, and this is what I'm talking about when you looked back at that picture, when you get a little distance from your life, you realize that there is an arc, there's a story you're telling. And mine is the story I want to tell with my life is that I lived the one life that my consciousness could have lived. Like I was built in a certain way with a certain childhood, sensitivities, a certain body. I am the one and only me that has ever lived, and that consciousness that is inside me has never been here before. And it is my opportunity to be as authentic and real and then tell about it. This is the thing, is when you learn and experience something, it becomes your duty to then tell about it, because you're not just a way finder. Once you found the way, you're a way teller. So that is what I want to do. So then now I'm in my like late 30s, and I'm like, what do I want to find? And what it is love. I realize I had so much baggage of trying to be the best boy and repressing my sexuality and hiding, and then I didn't start dating until I'm 30, and now I'm trying to make sure my mom's okay about that and whatever, and I have this deep sense of ugliness, and I shouldn't be in the game because I'm so late. And we live in a world where multinational trillion-dollar corporations are controlling our attention with these damn phones, and the political system is a disaster, and so I wanted to hide. And so I found a tiny cabin in the Rocky Mountains with no electricity, no toilet, nothing, no screens, of course, no service. And I lived there 8 weeks during the election cycle. So I didn't know who was president, imagine. The peace. And it was deeply profound, but this is one of the things, is that the speed with which we all live now is so... Everything feels so important that what you don't realize is while you live at this speed and you're constantly responding and replying and then taking that itch of discomfort and satiating it with slight dopamine hits, what it does is there is little accrued knowledge inside you from living that requires silence to speak. It's like they say, like mystic teachers say, that you cannot see your reflection in a pond where the water is moving. The water must get still, and then you can see your face clearly. And so that's what I did in this little porta potty house, and I had a blast in there. This is that's it. This is everything. And then I've never shown anybody. This book comes out next spring, and we just finished the cover like 5 days ago. So if you hate it, don't say anything, because this is like the sweet cover. And it's a little like wink to Go Tell It on the Mountain, which was my evangelical upbringing. And I'm like, how about you go quiet on the mountain? Like, stop telling all that. Because, no, if you love Jesus, I do too. We just are, sometimes we fight. And so, all that to say, I have been on this quest, truly thinking about that man in northern Uganda, where I was like, what is going to happen when I am his age? And I want to know what I look like. I want to know what I'm saying with my life. And I realize now, into my 40s, that I have been intentionally rowing that boat. And the key to, if I look, the key to every revelation that I have had is travel. You guys are in a very rare line of work where you're one of the few people that actually, your work is predicated on the idea of somebody being and moving their body and like not being online. You can't digitize getting somebody here. They need to be here and have a real, tangible, in their body experience. And Oregon, better than any state in the union, does that for everybody. And that is what is deeply profound to me and makes me so proud to be here. And the story that I hope each of you know that you're telling is not just as a wayfinder, but a way shower. Your job is to show people that by moving your body, by going to places, you're telling a story with your life. And I really have spent the last 15 years trying to figure out what it is I'm saying, and this is such a dumb story, but I'm gonna tell you. There's these girls in Virginia Beach that are very silly, and they were talking to each other, and one of them goes, what do you want for dinner tonight? I'm thinking sushi or hamburgers, but I don't know which place you want to go. And she's like, well, I'm not going to eat, but I don't really like sushi, but to each his own. And my friend goes, what did you say? And she goes, to each his own. I think it's French. It means like you do you. And she goes, what? To each his own. And my friend was pausing and thinking, and it's like, girl, I think you're speaking English. It's to each his own. All that to say, we got to know what we're saying when we're saying it. This is the nature of the beautiful job that you guys have, is that you invite people into a story. When somebody chooses to go on a trip, especially to a state they've never been to, or a part of the state they've never been to, they're choosing the type of person they want to be. I want to be the kind of dad that takes my kids on that trip. I want to be the kind of husband that takes my husband on that trip. I want to be the person who goes outside. What you're doing is you're adding chapters to the story of your life, so that there will come a day where you look back and you see things in a different way. Have you guys ever done the perspective swirl? Do you know what I'm doing? Okay. If you can hold up one hand, hold it, point to the sky, if you can. If you can't, watch someone else. Now look up. This might be a little of one of these like pat your head, rub your stomach, so just like don't throw up. You're gonna go like this clockwise, looking at the ceiling, like draw a circle clockwise on the ceiling. Now, keep doing that and keep rotating it and lower your arm below your chin. Like bring the circle down. Now, if you look down at your finger, it's going counterclockwise. Do you see that? So clockwise, it's doing the same thing. Now it's counterclockwise. This is the power of perspective. And, okay, enough. Someone's over there so dizzy, they're like, oh. What happens when you change your perspective, when you turn your all-powerful mother into a 30-year-old girl, when you turn your fear of being a man into the biggest bike trip you've ever done, when you turn your fear of being alone into a reflective 8 weeks by yourself, you change the perspective and you see the monster from the other side, and it's not a monster at all. And I just want to remind you, the 30,000-foot view of what you all do in this room is you bring people experiences like this that change their life and add to the story of who they want to be, what they want to be about, and what they look like to themselves. So I know I'm all about analog and I hate the phone, but I have one piece of homework for you to do, which is, and you can use someone else's phone, but you know how Snapchat has that old filter where it like makes you old? And if you're already, if you have achieved many years, it'll make you so much older, okay? Which, by the way, that's coming like I read all these science reports and we're gonna live to be 170, so get used to it. Like, if you have an annoying coworker, they're gonna be around. I'm so afraid of Sierra calling me. She goes, do you remember earlier today? She goes, have you guys met some friends or some contacts? I'm like, what if she called me a contact? I'm trying to be a friend. We're being categorized. All that to say, get this dang app, steal a Gen Z phone if you have to, and do this to yourself. Because I did to myself this, look how sweet he is. I love him so much. And so what was so funny is I had this very profound full circle moment with this man in northern Uganda where I saw myself, and I'm not there yet, but I know that I'm gonna make him proud, and I'm gonna fill his life with memories where he's got a glass of Merlot just off camera from some gorgeous Oregon Valley. And he is exhausted and proud. And not only do I want you to make sure, this is why I want you to do this homework, I want you to make sure that you make that person, when you're done with this journey, proud, but know in your heart of hearts that you bring that to other people. It's literally your career, is to bring life-changing memories to people around Oregon and to bring people into Oregon to have this land, this holy, sacred, gorgeous land, change their life. And this state has changed my life, and it's been a real honor to meet you and speak to you today. And I'm gonna hang out if anybody wants to talk about anything. I love talking, and I would love to meet you. And I hope you've had a wonderful conference, and be good to yourselves. Thank you, Oregon.
Bicycle, bicycle.